You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
And welcome back, Los Angeles, to the LA Football Show, live here in the LAFB Lounge with the Madman Jamal Madney. I'm Ryan Dyrud, live on the radio. Welcome in our ESPN 1090 listeners. Thank you all for making us a part of your commute, or if you're listening at home, that's great. Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, this is going to be your UCLA Bruins talk here on the LA Football Show. Make sure to check out the website, lafbnetwork.com. Everything you need for UCLA will be found there. Editorial, social, video, podcast, everything. Our great show, The Bruin Bible, is housed there. So lafbnetwork.com. Everything you need right there. Madman, what's happening? Glad to be in the lounge with you.
Oh, it's so great to be in the lounge with you, face to face, eye to eye. And we're in the lounge and talking about the mighty Bruins of UCLA. Life cannot get any better on this Friday, my friend.
Yes, beautiful day in LA as always. It's kind of, I feel like it's cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I'm in Pasadena. We're down here in Westwood. It's always a little cooler, I think, down this way anyway, which is nice. But yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk Bruins. Quickly, we'll pay the bills. Show brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% bonus on your first deposit. Plenty of fun stuff to bet on with football around the corner, but you still got baseball if you want live stuff. But I stick to football. Tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. Promo code BELIEVE. BetOnline.ag. Jamal, UCLA, Chip Kelly, they're still doing their thing recruiting for 2024. Another couple big name recruits, 4 stars, joining us. Or not joining us on the show, but joining the program. And a lot of excitement. I think what Chip's doing for the future of this program, he's obviously been a whiz in the transfer portal, but, it hasn't been no slouch in the recruiting game as well, I feel like. So just your thoughts on the two or the few new recruits that I just announced.
Yeah, where there's a will, there's sort of a way with Chip. And I think he's finding, Ryan, his voice, I think, with this sort of modern athlete. I think he needed to kind of figure out, what was going to be his game plan, what was going to be his larger vision for the program. Yeah. And then once he kind of got that solidified, now he can kind of go to a high school player and kind of sell that vision. I think that a lot of that was sort of lost in the narrative the last couple of years of why he was going to the transfer portal, because you have to, the style of recruiting for a kid that's played 3 or 4 years of college football versus a kid that's just come out of high school is completely different.
Completely.
The transfer portal, it's all short term, it's tactical. You're coming for 1 year. Where am I going to play this year? What's the coaching staff this year? How am I going to get to the league this year? It's very short term thinking. Whereas when you're recruiting right out of high school, you're selling the bigger vision. You're selling the bigger brand, where the program is headed. You can sell some games on the schedule a couple of years away. It's really a very different style. And so when you don't have your people in place, your processes in place, how you want to go about doing business for your program, it's harder to make that sell. Yeah. What you're seeing now, and we alluded to this last week, Ryan, is just how comfortable Chip is in his own skin. Yeah. And just how in tune he is with his program and how much of this program is a reflection of who he is, that now he can walk into these living rooms and sell UCLA. Yeah. And, there's a couple of kids that I'm really excited about. Derek McFall being one of them, 5'10", 175-pound running back. Kid can absolutely fly. Yeah. Recruited by the likes of Alabama, recruited by the likes of Oregon, recruited by some of the blue chip guys from Tyler, Texas. Now here he comes. He's going to be class of 2024 for UCLA. First time Chip gets a guy who can actually fly at UCLA. Think about it. The DeAnthony Thomas type at UCLA. When you look back at Charbonnet, when you look back at Britton Brown, you look back at Joshua Kelly, these are all hammers, thumpers. But now Chip can kind of do a thunder and lightning thing in 2024 with a kid like McFall and beyond. And then you've got Quasi Gilmore, who 6'2", 190 out of Sierra Canyon, 4-star. Really another kid that I think is a very polished route runner, very lean, built a lot like Kaz Allen. Yeah. But he's a very, very polished route runner. And so very exciting to see him come in from Sierra Canyon. Here's yet now another pipeline, Ryan, where UCLA is tapping into. We talk so much about that Mater Dei pipeline. We talk so much of that St. John's Bosco pipeline. Now UCLA kind of getting into that Sierra Canyon pipeline, known the last few years for basketball, but now being able to get there in football as well. So very exciting there. They've added a 4-star corner, Jameer Benjamin, as well. And it just keeps flowing here. Every week we're seeing new prospects come in. I think the 2024 class ultimately is going to be 50-50 for the first time. I think you're going to have 12 or 13 recruits right out of high school, and then another 12 or 13 out of the transfer portal. So to see this program really grow and flourish as they embark on this Big Ten journey, I think is very exciting.
Yeah, it's great to see. I agree with totally that, Chip's kind of found his footing in that. And I think that's not just the real reason, that's the main reason. My other question would be, how much do you think, if at all, the move to the Big Ten actually has an effect on some of these kids saying, like, yeah, I do want to go to UCLA because I get to play against Big Ten schools? And do you think it has any effect, or do you think it's simply just Chip finding his footing and all that UCLA
I think it has
offering?
a massive effect. I think when you have the opportunity to combine the market of Los Angeles, the weather of Los Angeles, the school that is UCLA, the facilities, all of that, with now the opportunity to play the greatest brands arguably in the whole sport, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Wisconsins, the Penn States, and you put all of that together, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You get to play on the biggest of stages, in the biggest of stadiums. You have the opportunity, if you succeed, to go to the playoff, to win games in the playoff, and then you also have the better weather than these other Midwest kids have. You have an iconic university, an iconic campus. You've got the unparalleled LA media market. It's the best of all worlds. So the Big Ten is already paying massive dividends. It's a combination of Chip kind of finding his vision, but that vision is enabled by the Big Ten. The vision becomes grander. It becomes more specific. It becomes more appealing when you got the BIG in there.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that since last July when it was announced that they were moving, about this would be a huge effect in recruiting, because not only do you have local kids or kids from Texas, that there's that allurement of, oh, cool, I get to live in LA, but I get to play against these brands. But then you also have the allurement of maybe some of those Midwest kids. Everyone knows about the pedigree of linemen that come from the Midwest. And now these LA schools, UCLA and the other one they play, have kind of that in their disposal as well in recruiting. And it's shocking to me how little that's getting talked about mainstream wise of that direct effect. Everyone's talking media deal and monies, which is so true, so apparent. But the effect of recruiting, the effect of NIL, the effect of all these different things about just being in the BIG, the Big Ten, is already reaping the benefits. And these kids coming in 2024, obviously they'll be the first class playing in the new conference. And that's probably a perfect segue now to kind of get into what we're watching before our eyes, probably the death of the Pac-12. As you know, the time of this recording on Thursday, if you're listening on Friday, maybe it's done already. We'll see. But as of now, University of Arizona and Arizona State are in kind of the final stages of deciding to go to the Big 12. Utah has been given, the end of the weekend?
The end of the weekend to decide.
And then there's already aggressive talks about Oregon and Washington joining the Big 10 as well. So, wild, Jamal, that we did a live just a week ago saying it looked like it was coming. Now it absolutely is coming, like a steamship rolling through. And this may be the end of one of the great conferences of our history.
Absolutely, Ryan. It's coming together very quickly, and surprisingly or unsurprisingly, it's sort of playing out exactly as we predicted for the better part of a year, where we said, look, after USC and UCLA made this move to the Big Ten, the Pac-12 was already kind of on thin ice. Colorado, going back to their roots, has sort of reopened the floodgates. And the four corner schools made so much sense for the Big 12 from a geography standpoint, a culture standpoint, where those programs are relative to their ability to grow. Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, that just made so much sense for the Big 12.
And just to jump in real quick, if you really look, and I know we've talked offline, if you look at the Big 12, there's not a lot of exciting teams. Automatically, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State may be the most exciting team in that conference, not named Oklahoma State.
No question about it. And, when you think about a school like Utah now, and, two-time defending Pac-12 champions, now they go into a conference where, you got Oklahoma State, you've got TCU, Baylor, and now they're right there. So now they're in a situation where they're in a top four conference. So they've moved up a conference, the way it is. They've gone to a top four conference, but now without Oregon, without USC, without Washington. So now they come in with really an opportunity. I think the big winner here is going to be Utah.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a more credible path to the playoff, and they're going to have an easier path to the playoff because I think they're going to have more success in the Big 12 than they did in the Pac-12. And the last 2 years, they were arguably the most successful team. So I think you're going to see Thursday night, Ryan, tonight, at the time of this recording, I think Arizona and Arizona State are going to say yes. And I think Utah is going to ultimately, I think Arizona State, they know the $31.7 million makes all the sense in the world. They are going to say yes tonight. I think Utah is going to take 48 hours to say, hey, BIG, do you want in? I mean, maybe even, float the SEC. Maybe say, go to the Mountain West and say, if you give us just an enormous share, I think they're going to kind of look at their financial position and just look at options.
Yeah.
I think in the end, the option of the Big 12 will be the most attractive. They will go there. And then you have the BIG for who initially said, hey, we might be open for business for 20 teams, and meaning 4 more teams. They've now honed in on 18 and 2 more teams. And just Oregon and Washington, you and I said, it just makes so much sense in terms of that alignment. And then I think the domino from there is I see Stanford going independent. Yeah. I think they are the ones that are actually going to sign a deal with Apple TV. And I think
exclusively.
They are exclusively.
Yeah.
I think that just given Stanford, the tech ecosystem, the
proximity,
entrepreneurship, the Silicon Valley piece, I think the Stanford alumni in general are just a wealthier population. I think they can subscribe and not worry about it as much. And so I think it kind of works for Stanford, and they're going to be able to keep their autonomy. They're all such a unique university. And then I think Oregon State, Washington State, and Cal, I think, are headed for the Mountain West. And I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic with Cal in particular. They have been the big brother. They have been the flagship UC school for so many years. And now they see little brother not only leave them, but go to the BIG. And big brother's got to be stuck going to the Mountain West. Oh, my goodness. How things have changed. UCLA, if there was any doubt, which is the top dog in terms of public universities in this country, I think this has been emphatically answered.
Yes. And I don't see a path that Cal could even get into the big, outside of like the Olympic sports, maybe if the big wanted that, but not in basketball or football do they bring the draw that would be desirable. You feel for, not to get off UCLA topic, but you feel for a program like Oregon State. It seems like they finally have gotten it right. Yeah. They're like building something really good. I've been saying for a few months that I think they're outside of SC and UCLA. I think they're the team to beat in the Pac-12 this year.
I agree.
I think what Jonathan Smith has built is so impressive. And so you feel for a program like that if they end up essentially getting relegated in a soccer term to the Mountain West, and I love the Mountain West, it's no disrespect, but it's not a Power 5 conference. So you feel for them when they finally have reached this peak, and then it's just going to come shattering down.
Ryan, it's such a great point because, like we talked about, I think the big winner in all of this, outside of USC and UCLA, is Utah. Yeah, like we talked about. I think the big loser is Oregon State here. Unfortunately, I mean, think about they've turned the corner. They've got a great coach in Jonathan Smith. All the facilities upgrades,
huge upgrades.
I mean, that USC Oregon State game was played on half a field last year,
and it was still intense.
Yeah, and you just gotta love the fan base of the Oregon State Beavers. And now if they get relegated down to a Mountain West, what does that mean for the future of Jonathan Smith? Does he now have to go somewhere else to sort of continue his coaching career from a long-term projection standpoint? And then does that send Oregon State back into kind of 3-win, 4-win land? You really feel for Oregon State here.
Do you think there's any world, this is one thing we haven't talked about, any world where all these teams leave and you're left with Cal, Washington State, Oregon State? I don't think I'm forgetting any. Stanford's not staying with it. They're going independent. So you're left with those 3. I don't think we're missing any.
Yep.
Any world where the Pac-12 and the Mountain West just merge and say, we just got to, we can do the Apple deal that we've said, which is still going to be more than what the Mountain West deal is. You'll call us, we'll be the Pac-12 because the Mountain West has 10 teams or whatever. And they just become a new Pac-12 that's essentially a pseudo Mountain West.
No, I think so. I think that's probably going to be the play. And they may change the name altogether. It may be some new name, the Pacific Conference or the Western Conference.
The Mountain Pac.
The Mountain Pac. But I think that's probably where this is headed. Now, I think that Apple TV deal, I'm not sure it stays as lucrative if all you're left with is Oregon State, Washington State, Cal, and the Mountain West teams. So financially, it may be an absorption by the Mountain West, or it's an outright merger. But I think it's an excellent point, and I think that's where we're headed. So it all shifts on Arizona. You can see the BIG is sort of lurking. They're just waiting for Arizona State to say yes, and they're going to poach Oregon and Washington at the very next instant. And then you're down to 4 teams technically. Then Stanford's going to have to decide what it wants to do, and then you're down to 3.
Yeah, it's just crazy that 2-3 years ago there was the opportunity of a Pac-12 Big 12 merger.
Oh my goodness!
And they flubbed that, and now they might be merging with the Mountain West or just folding altogether.
Oh no! I mean,
crazy how time changes.
George Klivkoff is going to be vacationing in the Amalfi Coast here within 10 days.
Yes.
Because I think his job is no longer going to be necessary come Monday morning.
Yeah. We say in NFL terms like "see you in Cabo" means your season is over,
exactly.
and see you wherever the Amalfi
This is different though, Ryan. The season's not over. Your conference is over. Technically, here's the thing. Technically, he didn't get fired.
Yeah.
Technically, his job just goes away.
Just ends.
It ends.
Yeah.
So, I think that's probably how you need to spin it on the resume for the next job. I look forward to seeing George Klivkoff as a Fortune 500 executive within 3 to 6 months.
Of course, yeah, he'll be back somewhere because that's how the world works. But the last thing I'll say, and then we'll do a little fall camp preview for the Bruins. It's obviously it's not going to look the same no matter what. Obviously, SC and UCLA are leaving, so that was the first domino to fall, but. Obviously, there's sadness in the history and the rivalries and the tradition of this conference going. But I think one thing that hasn't been talked about a lot, because we talk about the anger towards the higher-ups, Larry Scott, the anger towards Klivkoff, even some of his other executives, the media deal stuff, just have all that talk's been on that. And the one thing that really has been talked about is just the Pac-12 employees that are actually there's a lot of great people that work for the Pac-12. Our friend Yogi Roth, obviously. Jordan, who we met down at Pac-12 Media Day that Will knew and worked with, and that whole media room and all the broadcasters and all the people on the ground. And so that's kind of, yes, the tradition is sad. Yes, the history is sad. But when you look at hundreds of people that have put their blood, sweat, and tears in this conference on the back end of it, not in terms of the universities. And now, they'll, I'm sure, hopefully find jobs elsewhere. But it's just these are people's livelihoods that is just ending because of this too.
No, that's a great point, Ryan. And, our thoughts go out to them. And, hopefully there's an opportunity where even LAFB can be an opportunity for some of those folks. There's just so many talented folks. Yogi, we're looking at you. So many talented folks there. And that's what the shame is here. You don't have to worry about the schools. In some cases, they're getting paid even more. Other cases, there's all these, golden parachutes for a lot of these schools with these other conferences. You certainly don't have to worry about Klivkoff and the Pac-12 offices at the higher-ups. It's the folks that provided the great analysis, the TV personalities that did such great work, and anything we can do to help, we'll certainly be there. And hashtag Yogi Roth to LAFB. Let's start that campaign.
That's all for that one. All for that one. So we just need a media deal merger to be able to offer that salary. So... All right, Jamal, let's wrap up with a little, fall camp preview. We've been talking at nauseam kind of our expectations for this team going into the year, so we probably don't have to spend a lot of time because there's not a lot of new information out there. But, we'll probably have an idea fairly quick about actually who's going to be the starting quarterback for this team. I mean, game one is August 26th?
Yes.
We're 23 days away. So I think it's going to be 10 days probably, and we'll have an answer at who's starting quarterback. There's more clarity on our running back room. Us here at LAFB, I think, have been very clear who the front runners are. A lot of people outside of kind of what we do don't seem to know that or think that, but we know kind of TJ Harden's the runaway guy. Colson Yankoff is shining out more than a lot of people think, and then everyone else kind of falls in line a little bit. And obviously the law firm that is J. Michael Sturdivant is just going to be one of the greatest receivers in this conference. So just for you, outside of everything I just said, kind of some fall camp expectations, I think.
Ryan, I think all eyes are going to be on Dante Moore's ability to grasp the playbook. And I think that's the big takeaway from spring practice was Garbers just knew the playbook better. He was more comfortable in the offense. It was more smooth. When it got into drills or situations where Chip said, okay, throw out the playbook now go make a play, Dante won 10 out of 10 in those head-to-head opportunities. So how much from the last few months of spring ball to now fall camp has Dante been able to absorb? How much smoother is he in terms of going through his progressions, anticipating, expecting the offensive concepts? That's going to be number one. And then number two for me is going to be, how does this linebacker room look? With Oladejo, with Muasau, with Carl Jones. John Vaughns is now in fall camp. He wasn't there in
Baseball's
spring
over.
because baseball is over. So how are those four guys going to fit in with obviously Latu and the Murphy twins and Jay Toya and so forth? So I'm looking at kind of the front seven and some of those new additions. And then how much Dante has established in terms of his knowledge of the playbook. And then the last piece for me, Ryan, is has there been some separation in the secondary with the top dog?
Yeah.
It has an alpha kind of emerged in that secondary. So those are my three watch items, and looking forward to seeing how that unfolds in the days to come.
Yeah, cannot wait. For some immediate reaction, you can check out our Bruin Bible. Wayne Cook was on with Will Decker.
Yes.
Wayne Cook was at first day of fall camp, so you can get some insight nuggets there. But we'll have coverage for you all fall camp and obviously leading up to the season. So all the time we got for Bruin Talk. Take a quick break on radio. Podcasters, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys all next week.